Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tipped. My name is Julian, and in today's episode, we're going to unfortunately be talking about players that you might want to cut from your team because they're just not producing. Before we get started, guys, please leave a like, hit the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. And if you do want to take your support to the next level, you can follow me on Patreon. The link is in the description below. Thanks so much, guys. Now let's jump right into it, and let's start with some forwards that you might want to consider dropping from your team. And first we have Jakub Vrana of the Detroit Red Wings, and he's going to be out for a bare minimum of 30 days because he has entered the NHL Player Assistance Program, and that lasts for a bare minimum of 30 days. So you can expect him to be out of your lineup for at least the next 4 weeks, if not longer. Luckily, this counts as his status being IR. So if you do have the IR room, I definitely would not drop Jakub Vrana. But if you are in a shallower league and you don't have a whole lot of IR spots, he is definitely someone that is droppable. Then I have Nino Niederreiter, who's 46% rostered up to this point. And I know he had a very hot start with 4 goals in his first 4 games. But let's keep in mind that 3 out of those 4 goals were against San Jose, which is one of the worst teams in the league. And that's not a sustainable shooting percentage that he had. It was incredibly high, and it's going to come down. It's going to continue to come down. And unfortunately, I don't see Niederreiter being someone that should be even close to this percentage rostered. Maybe about 20-25% rostered is reasonable for Niederreiter, but not more than that. To top that off, Niederreiter and the Preds have a pretty bad schedule this week in terms of games played. They only have 2 games played, and they're both played on very busy nights this week. He's someone that I definitely would consider dropping in most leagues this week. Then I have Vasily Podkolzin, who over the course of 4 games has a couple of points. Hasn't looked particularly great. He even got to play with JT Miller last game, and that didn't really amount to too much. Now he's actually skating on a line with Pettersson and Kuzmenko. So if you want to wait and see how that line ends up looking, you can. But personally, I'm not super high on Podkolzin this season, and I don't think you should be either. Then I have Juraj Slafkovsky of the Montreal Canadiens, and he was the first overall draft pick this year. I know that, but as of right now, he's playing only on the 4th line for Montreal. And honestly, I think he's going to be sent down to the AHL soon, guys. And as long as he's getting that deployment, guys, I don't think he has a whole lot of value. And even if he does start getting better deployment, I just don't think he's ready for the NHL this year, which is why I would drop him. And then I have Jared McCann of the Seattle Kraken, who started off strong. His first game, he got a goal. But after that, in his last 4 games, he has only a single assist and has basically stopped shooting the puck, which is not good. And he's only getting 3rd line deployment right now. So his deployment really isn't helping his case right now, guys. So if you do own Jared McCann, if you picked him up for the off nights that Seattle had this week, I would definitely consider dropping him for next week. Jumping into defensemen now, and the first player that I would drop is Owen Power, who is still 76% rostered, and he's the one player that I've had on this list 3 out of 3 weeks. Guys, Owen Power is someone that I really was not high on going into the season fantasy-wise. He's a prospect that I definitely really like, but without that top power play time, he's not going to be able to put up that quality of fantasy numbers, which is why I really don't like him. And in shallower leagues, he can definitely easily be dropped. He definitely should not be owned in 76% of leagues. Then I have Jared Spurgeon on 66% rostered, and with Addison playing on the top power play and actually performing, Spurgeon is someone that's a pretty safe drop at this point. He's not going to really be able to put up that many points if he's not playing on that top Minnesota power play unit, and that's why he's a pretty easy drop outside of deep leagues. Then I have Keandre Miller, who started off the season strongly with 2 points and 2 games, and then his last couple games hasn't done a whole lot of anything. Now, he's someone that I was not very high on going into the year. He's someone that pretty much sees 0 power play time for New York, and while he does put up a little bit of hits and blocks peripherals, it is definitely not enough for him to be 45% rostered. That's absolutely ridiculous. If you own him, you probably should consider dropping him. Then I have Vince Dunn, who has 2 assists through 5 games, but other than that, he hasn't really done a whole lot of anything. Vince Dunn hasn't put up really many peripherals, and it looks like Schultz has already taken over as the better power play defenseman, the one getting more power play time And because of that, guys, Dunn definitely should not be 36% owned. I don't think he's that great of a defenseman, guys, and I think that he should be dropped in the majority of leagues. Then I have Connor Clifton, who's now owned in 18% of the leagues, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Yes, he started off the season with 4 points through his first 3 games, all assists, but that was a complete and utter fluke. Connor Clifton is not suddenly going to be a guy getting you a point per game. Those of you that added him should probably consider dropping him if he doesn't continue that streak in the next game or two, because that streak is likely over and he should be back on your waiver wire. Moving on to goaltenders now, and first on the list is Pavel Francouz of the Colorado Avalanche. 50% rostered, and I'm not dropping Pavel Francouz just yet in most leagues. Especially if I'm in a Cats league, I'm still holding on to Pavel Francouz. But so far, it's been Georgiev that started 3 out of the 4 games, which is not very encouraging. The encouraging part is that Georgiev didn't play that amazing in any of the games, so Francouz definitely could start seeing more starts going forward. As of right now, though, he's not seeing the starts. So if you're in a shallower league where there's other goaltender options available to you, you could consider dropping him. Then I have Vitek Vanacek of the New Jersey Devils, 35% rostered. And in the 3 games played so far, Blackwood has started 2, and Blackwood has looked better. Both of them did not look good in their first games, so maybe Vanacek will start a second game and look solid. It is definitely really early to be saying to drop Vitek Vanacek, especially if you're in a league that's super, super deep and there's no other goalies available. Then yeah, you're probably going to have to ride Vitek Vanacek and see what happens, but I'm not super high on him. Hopefully he can do better in his next start, and if he can, then he could possibly be seeing more starts in New Jersey, but he is competing against Blackwood for that role. Then I have Philip Grubauer of the Seattle Kraken, and I'm not necessarily dropping him just yet if you're in a points-based league where save count as points, but in a Cats league, he's a definite drop, and he's definitely not someone that I'm very high on. I know I have his jersey behind me, and it was a disappointment ever since I got that jersey. He had a terrible year last year, and I assumed that he would bounce back this year. But Martin Jones is getting more starts than him right now. But I mean, Martin Jones is not really playing any better, so they're going to be splitting the starts. And until one of them can really show that they can be better than the other, none of them is really going to get more starts than the other. But if you're desperate, keep Grubauer. If there's other goaltender options available to you, definitely drop him. Then I have Stuart Skinner of the Edmonton Oilers, and he was added in a lot of leagues because Jack Campbell did not start off the season very well. He's still at 24% rostered. In the game that he did play, he didn't end up winning the game, didn't play particularly great, and that's why, to me, Jack Campbell is still going to be the starter in Edmonton. Also, he signed to a big contract. They're going to give him a lot of opportunities to continue to be that starter in Edmonton, to continue to show that he is a good goalie. And I do believe Jack Campbell is a good goalie. So we'll have to wait and see how he does. But I don't think Stuart Skinner is going to be taking over the crease, at least for another couple of weeks. And then last but not least, I have Carey Price of the Montreal Canadiens, 15% rostered. And I assume this is mostly auto draft people, but if you have Carey Price on your roster, drop him, guys. What are you doing? Price is not going to be playing this season. It's already been confirmed. So go ahead and get rid of him from your roster. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. Please leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. If you do want to take your support to the next level, the link to my Patreon is in the description below. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.